All right. Hello, welcome to Never Stop Questioning. My name is Cole Dorman. I'm here with Dr. Vincent Rodgers. Dr. Rodgers, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a physics professor at the University of Iowa. I've been here for about 31 years now. And my research is in study things like black holes, gravitation, what makes gravity so special, and it's a very strange force, and string theory, what is called string theory,
Yeah.
and unified theories of the universe. So my work is very mathematical physics oriented. We try to find the modern day version of the laws of physics so we can give them to our experimental friends and they can tease it out to see whether they make sense or not. So that's my work.
Absolutely. Did you always know you wanted to do that, or?
I always loved science. I'm one of those people who's fortunate to have a twin brother.
Yeah.
And because of that, we were able to just be renegades and run around the house and do all kind of things. And my father was a journalist, my mother was a nurse, and so it was a good combination of, they knew how to make us read and write, okay, and at the one hand, and my mother taught us how to do things like science dissection and all kinds of stuff like this. So it was fun. So I've always wanted to get deep with knowledge, and so going to the library on weekends was not uncommon for our family. The whole family we would go as a field trip. Our trips were like to go to the library, and things like that. So so I would say that a good part of it was always some kind of scientific endeavor.
You guys sound pretty close. Are you still able to hold the bonds after all these years?
My brother, man? Yeah, of course. Yeah, I shouldn't say of course, because some twins just don't get along, But yeah, my twin and I we're still best friends, and well, I was just texting him just now, so we were talking about which textbooks to use. He's an engineering professor, so he's also likes the mathematical end of things, and so we were talking about what textbook to use. And the book he showed me turns out to be one of the authors of his book for engineering mathematics. Turns out to be one of the authors, the same author I use for Introduction to General Relativity. So it was pretty interesting that we have the same taste, even in textbooks in some sense.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like engineering and physics really overlap a lot, with engineering being more of the applied side of physics, and then physics being more of the theory behind it. I know there is like applied physics certainly, but
well, applied physics and engineering, they start to merge at some point. Engineers should be proud of the fact that they can take the mathematics of physicists and somehow squeeze the iPhone out of it or something. And it's really extremely interesting work, because they don't have to do the daunting work of trying to find the laws of physics and discover what's going on, but they can give you, in fact, a lot of our physics cannot be done without pretty advanced, sophisticated engineering.
Yeah.
I mean, just conversation alone, okay, is based on physics principles, but it's engineers who actually design these devices so we can make use of those laws of physics, and almost everything in advanced astronomy and high energy particle physics, cosmology, we rely on very sophisticated engineering just to find out what the laws are. So we couldn't possibly live. There's no breaking up the subjects, once you get out of school,
I guess I kind of more of the original question. Did you always know you wanted to do theoretical physics? Or
no.
Did you bounce around a lot with that? Yeah.
No, I didn't bounce around a lot, but I knew I wanted to do psychology when I first was getting ready to go to college. My uncle was a psychology professor at the University of Michigan, Flint branch, and I always liked to understand how the brain and all these complicated things. But when I looked at the curriculum for psychology, there was no mathematics in it. I always loved mathematics, and so I was like, wow, there's no mathematics. So I wrote to the mathematics department to see if I could go to mathematics, and mathematics department wrote back to me at the school I went to and said, we worked, a lot of our majors are both physics and math majors. I'm like, you can major in physics? I thought physics was just this course you took. I didn't know a whole body of knowledge of people, and I just sort of dropped everything I was doing. And I wrote to the physics department and asked them what it'd like to be a physics major. And man, they were bragging all about how smart these guys. I was like, yeah, I got to be one of these guys. Okay. So it was. I didn't even know I was probably I'd already gone to college prep high school, but I still didn't even know Einstein was a physicist. You know, we just never talked about it. And you know, there was lots of things like that where it was just a very interesting discovery overnight. And then I knew these people were scientists, but I didn't realize that physics was still an active area. You know, it sounded like it was, you know, it always sounded like it was Newton and Einstein and other dead people, you know.
I feel like Einstein's so well known, but you know, not a lot of people know like what he did. I know it wasn't really until relatively recently, but I knew what like E equals MC squared really meant, or like what's applied for, or what it does, and so on.
Yeah. There's a lot of the stuff that Einstein did. Okay, he was a big civil component also. It's just a lot of stuff he's a pretty complicated guy.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to just pick up what he's doing from a few buzz phrases. I notice everyone likes to quote Einstein for stuff, but every once in a while you should just read a book and just see what the guy's biography. And I did that with a bunch of people when I was an undergraduate. I would just study what people were up to, who they were, you know, for a variety of reasons. I was actually impressed with Einstein. I'm usually disappointed, you know, when you dig deep, but this guy Einstein was pretty interesting. There were a lot of interesting characters. You know, Emmy Noether's an interesting character. You look at the lives of some of the people who went before us. Like Emmy Noether was a German Jew. She's a female, and she wasn't even allowed to go to school. But she turns out to be one of the most important mathematical physicists in our day. In fact, we still use Noether's theorem today. And I mean, she maybe only been paid a year and a half in her whole life, okay? And when she came to Bryn Mawr in the United States, and you look at the amount of stuff she amassed just to do what she did in that short amount of time was, because she died very young, was amazing. So, you know, I like to complain sometimes that I'm a state employee, but then I look at these people who worked very hard. Faraday was another guy. He was always questioning himself. He had somewhat of an imposter syndrome kind of thing. I don't know if we would have called it that, but he was depressed. You know, he had memory lapses and things like this. But this guy is the inventor of the electric motor and electricity and magnetism. And, you know, so there's a lot of cool personalities. I always like to read about those guys.
Yeah.
You know. So,
that really shape you just in your undergraduate and or growing up, just kind of like reading on these other.
Well, it made more sense. I mean, we hear these fairy tales, and when you read a biography of somebody, you realize that those are people doing the same thing I'm doing. So I'm not so out of place after all. You know. So you don't have to feel like you have to be this really brilliant person and blowing out the score. I was good in school. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you know, you would think that people like Einstein, you have to be you know, these are virtuosos of mathematics, and you just never will be able to do well in science. But it's not true. Even a guy like there's this thing called Green's functions in electricity and magnetism. Have you had electricity and magnetism?
No, I've taken calculus and I've learned about Green calculus.
Yeah, well, Green's function. Read about this guy Green one day. He worked in a lighthouse with his father, okay, and he just wrote a couple of papers, and he was not a big dog scholar, okay. He just, in fact, his paper was rejected at first by the mathematics community in the 1830s, and then he came back, and one of the major players in mathematics said, you know, this is a really interesting paper, and turned around, and people actually encouraged him to go and get his college degree, and then to go and go teach, and he also died very young, but. You know, you look at all these people who were, you know, Riemann, this guy who shook up what we call geometry. Okay, you know, these are always some interesting folks, and you know, I always found it interesting to read about, you know, how far back can we go. I even went like the first black physicist, for example, was 1876, which is hard to believe. But this person was going through, he was studying physics at a time when the world was questioning whether his intellect. Okay, he was like, okay, I'll just go do physics at Yale University, and he actually turned out to be a pretty well-known person after that. So you look at the personalities, okay, and what's going on in the world, and it makes much more sense than the sort of the stories you hear. Yeah. You know, the sort of the cartoon we presented. You know, that's what I liked about it.
No, do you read a lot in your free time?
What's that word? Free?
Yeah, you know.
I have 5 PhD students. I knocked it down to 3.
Okay.
Actually, it's 4 now. I had 6 PhD students. I knocked it down to 4 this summer because 2 graduated. But um, I still squeeze some quick reading in about biography. What's really nice about Wikipedia and these other areas is you can take your cell phone with you to the, while you're cooking dinner. You know, you could just flash to, oh, I wonder who this person is. Okay.
Yeah.
And you get a good idea of what that person is from just coding it in, and you can learn a lot about personalities and things, you know, very quickly that way. So it's really an interesting world we live in, where you can actually, if you want to, you can at least get some superficial understanding, much better than it was when I was going to college. But he had to go to the library and buy a book about what's going on with stuff like Wikipedia and the internet. So just be careful what sources you bump into.
Absolutely. I feel like Wikipedia is relatively like a safe source now at this point, though. It's reviewed enough, and
it's a good source, and in the sense that it gives you enough references, and you can see when it's sketched.
Yeah.
So it's you can see when the article is so sketched that, you know, okay, and I'm not going to bother with this one. But there's times when you look at the references and then you start to dig a little deeper, you get a little interesting. Yeah. So I was, you know, so it's so I always I sort of like that psychology part of the world still, even though I do mathematical physics. So I still sort of like that. Wonder about the personalities, people's personality, what drives them to do things. You know.
That's what I was kind of really trying to target, I guess, with this whole podcast thing, in a sense, or these interviews, was just kind of to, I feel like everyone knows you as, like, you know, like Dr. Vincent Rodgers, the professor, but, you know, there's a lot more to people that goes on kind of behind the scenes.
That's hard to believe. Yeah, if you know, if your teacher in college told you she was dating someone, okay, the students would drop their jaw because they would think that belongs to them, that whole community.
No,
absolutely. They could have this whole rich world, but your teacher should just be teaching their lesson for the rest of their life. And the teachers are, you know, people. It's just like true for everybody. You just want to sometimes wonder what's the story. And I think we're getting more familiar with that idea now of asking what's the story behind this person, and realizing that there may be decades of stuff digging deep under those currents of who we call that person. So it's an interesting world now in that sense. We can get it very quickly, a little bit more quickly.
That's true. You know, we do live in a very informational world. I love that Wikipedia cites all the sources for, like, when I do like English papers, stuff here for the university, I can just read the Wikipedia article and then they give you the source. So I can just steal the source, and it makes my life so easy.
But the source is, then you dig into it. And so Wikipedia can only go so far, right? And then, you know, and then at some point when you start digging deeper and deeper, you start to see all of the day-to-day stuff, the frustrations that people were going through, and just to get something out. I mean,
I've read a fair amount. I've gone into certainly Wikipedia rabbit holes before. Where you like read like a really cool article, and then you just keep going. Then you click like a different link to a different one, but to find out more about it, and then you find you're a few hours deep.
An info hawk at our university is pretty nice, because I use that to, I'll dig a reference off what I call the encyclopedic version of Wikipedia. So it's not even a primary, just a sort of secondary reference. So you get, and then you use it to go to like info hawk, and now you dig deeper into the primary references, and then you start to see, wow, this is what's going on. And you know, you bump into papers where people had no idea how important their work was. They were just trying some stuff, you know. And you know, Riemann is almost 80 years before Einstein. You think he had a clue that Einstein would use that to discover black holes and cosmology? It's you know, it's, for him, he was probably looking at cockroaches moving on salad bowls, you know, just to see the geometry of curved spaces, you know. And
yeah, it's honestly, I guess, putting into perspective that they were so far apart, it's kind of weird to me, because I totally only associate, I guess, working with you of like Riemannian geometry with space-time and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's not. Riemannian geometry was just to say, what do we do when you have curved space? In high school, we study rulers, lines, and we have all these Euclid stuff. But Euclid stuff is old. But Riemannian geometry said, let's set that stuff aside. Not every line has to be parallel and all this kind of stuff. And that describes much better the world, you know. You look at a tree outside, do you see a smooth cylinder of absolutely perfect cylinder? No, you see this extremely ragged thing, and that's the natural geometry. that geometry is probably more natural than if you saw a smooth cylinder or a tree move this, you would probably go crazy.
Yeah.
If it wasn't inside of a building, which was human made. So it's you're like, wow. So what is nature's mathematics is still our quest,
So earlier you said that you have a few PhD students. You said that's a lot of work. What goes into managing a PhD student?
Well, each student is a personality, and so you really have to. I mean, I've found a couple things useful, and this is not to slight any particular student, but it's good to have friends in psychology because sometimes you're coming from a perspective, and when you try to drag your perspective into the world and just hammer it on, it doesn't work. Okay, sometimes you just got to be able to sit and listen. So you got to first listen. You got to be creative, but what you're trying to do is train your students to be creative. And this is something you never really study in college until you get to the graduate program. You're not asked. No one, very few people ask you to be creative, except for some writing and some music and things like this. But in science, it's certainly not true. You really have tons of stuff to regurgitate anyway. And so now you have to be able to somehow train students to see that everything you've learned so far still just came from another human being, and it can still be wrong. So in physics, we say something is a fact or right when it's beyond a reasonable doubt, like the law. But it doesn't mean that you can't wake up one morning and some experimentalist has shown you that everything we thought was wrong. Yeah, we're prepared for that. But we need to know where we can begin to go back to the blackboard. So, or is it a whiteboard now? We have to know. So that's why we study it so much. And a lot of stuff that you see in the literature may not be useful, but it's the thought and everything that's been laid out now for you. If you would have this particular tree of thought, this is what's going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what you're really learning. So you train students to be creative. So now you have to find out where you can teach that process quickly, because you only have 5 or 6 years to do it. And that's not a long time. If I told you to write a piece of music, okay, which was, if I told you to write a piece of music, which is like for Marvel Comics this weekend, I'm going to cut my phone off so that.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, you would be like, well, I need a soundtrack. I need a soundtrack by this weekend, and as much piano and everything like that. You can't just compose a piece of music for a multi-million-dollar movie without some skills. So that's the difference between saying you play piano from what we do as undergraduate to saying I compose this piece of music as a graduate student.
So would like going to a master's program like teach you how to be creative, but then like the PhD program would be even taking that step further?
I would say the PhD program is the real creative process. The master's degree is a little bit more intense, but there are some times where you definitely want to take it. You can become creative, but still, it's like that thing you're saying, the rabbit hole. You've gotten a little deeper now from what you've already learned, and now you see some nuances that you would not have expected to see. With the PhD, you have to produce a document what no one else in the world's ever seen before. That's the idea, and so you have to be teaching your faculty something. And when you walk out, you've said something to the faculty, and it's a collaboration. There's a lot of it's not like somebody leaves you in a room and says, "Come back with me in 5 years and tell me something new." Okay, it's a collaboration. You brought on board. It's just like anything like carpentry, or if you're building a house, you work with a master carpenter, and they show you the ropes and everything like this. But it doesn't mean that you can't go and design your own house now, because you know what the ins and outs are, and you know what So it's the same as that.
No, I totally.
Or even music, if you want. You may teach me keyboards, right? And you may teach me what's the proper chord progressions to go from here to here. And then I may hit you with some new rhythm or something like that. And you say, "Oh, that's new. That's nice." And we record and make millions.
And earlier you were saying that your uncle's a professor, or was a professor, and your brother's a professor. Like, seems like you kind of come from a family of creatives in a sense.
There's a few of us. But the twin is different because that's competition at home.
Okay, yeah.
So I had lots of uncles. So this uncle was a professor in psychology. His daughter was she became a dean, and she became a president of a university in medicine. So and she's now at Rodgers. But So we sort of hang out with the academics. We sort of hang out each other, but we like the rest of the family is non-academic, but they're pretty cool people.
Yeah.
At the same time. So.
Were there any moments in your education that were challenging?
Yeah, physics is one of those fields where you doubt yourself. You wonder if it's you. Okay. And now I can say that almost all challenges in physics are not you. It's just that you're trying to understand Mother Nature, and she ain't playing. She's attractive, she's pretty, but she's not trying to hurt you, but she's hard to get to know.
I feel like right now it's me trying to understand word problems.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the one thing in mathematics that is the most frightening thing to people is that it's one thing to teach you how to take the derivative of a function that I give you. Mm-hmm. It's another thing for you to find this is the function I need to be using, and not only do I take its derivative, but I integrate it this way, and this gives me my answer. That's the creative process. So problem solving is the beginning of what we call the creative process for undergraduates. Mm-hmm. Except where we know the answer.
Yeah.
So, but that truncates. So you don't want to run to find that answer. You want to really struggle with, here's a trick I'll tell you, which I do with my students. I tell them that if you want to really figure it out, if you have a solution, just lay it on the table upside down, okay? And you try to figure it out. You try it. And every once in a while, when you feel like you just got an impasse, you can't go further, just take a peek at it. Just look at it. Mm-hmm. Don't write anything. Look at it. To get your aha moments. And you put it back down, and now see if you can redo it, okay? And chances are just that process right there ties the left and right brains together so that the part where you see a professor writing stuff on the blackboard, and she's perfectly logical when she writes. I mean, it makes so much sense to you. Then your friend comes out and says, well, what did you learn today in class? Oh, it was really cool lecture. That's the best you can say because you can't, the brain has gotten, part of it has gotten, but you can't articulate it yet. So doing this trick is what I used to do. And keep your notes, okay? Keep your bad notes as well as your good ones, okay? And you'll find that you're actually reinforcing you're finding those gaps in your brain, those logic gaps, which are pretty much unique to you.
I feel like that's how I learn the best, at least for like homeworks and stuff, is when I really get stuck, I'll look up the solution. And then that problem's been kind of given away from me. Mm-hmm. But I can see where they were coming from, and I can reproduce that for other problems. Mm-hmm.
But don't look so deep. Don't look at the full solution. Just next time, just get to line 3 or 4, you see.
All right.
It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's like dessert.
Yeah, no, it's just there.
So. It's like, it's hard to do, but you just have to discipline yourself. Say you want to train yourself think of yourself as a sprinter or a hurdler. Mm-hmm. You keep tripping, so you don't keep trying to run up against the same one, the same hurdle. You lower it, and then you try again, okay? And then you get your skills, and you bring it up, you get your skills, and so I think athletics is a good way to study physics. Think like an athlete or like a musician.
No, yes, the brain's a muscle like anything else.
Yep. And pianists do the same thing. You just repeat. You try to go, okay, you got this measure, you're going to get through it. Mm-hmm. Okay, by golly, by the end of the night, I'll start at 8 a.m, but it may be midnight before you finally get control of that thing where, but you don't try to do it at once,
Mm-hmm. I feel like I already know the answer to this, but I want to ask, do you think it's worth it to get a PhD?
It depends on the person, actually. It's really, it's a leadership degree. It's a degree that a lot of people can do other things, okay, without a PhD. And some people get PhDs and then don't like it at the end. But a PhD is an extremely useful degree for someone who really wants to get in the mix and be creative, try new things, be a leader in some sense, be an educator. Someone who really is shown that they know what it takes to know something. Okay, so when you say this is what happens, okay, it makes sense because you actually know what it takes to know something in a very almost ugly way. You've had to deal with personalities. You've had to deal with people who don't trust you. You've had to deal with mathematics going awry or whatever, equipment not working, just to get these little results in this little book you call a thesis. And that's not, that's the trials and tribulations you go through for anything. But it's if you try to start your own business, right? Mm-hmm. you also have similar experiences. So it's the same kind of struggle, but it's one is a degree associated with a with the science or whatever it is that you're doing. The other one is can you successfully negotiate this business? You want to start a flower shop, right?
Mhm.
You know, well, what flowers do I buy? Who do I hire to help me with the flowers? And the creative process is now starting to kick in, and you can emulate to some extent, but you can't reproduce exactly the same flower shop that the competitor has because
I guess like in extreme sense, would you say that anyone can get a PhD, but only like certain people can use the PhD?
well, I would never say anyone could do anything.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I don't think I think that's a cartoon. Okay, so it's
Mhm.
like saying, Vince, you can be an NBA basketball player. I can't, and nor do I want to be. You have to want something first.
Mhm.
Okay, you have to want it bad enough to actually try, and then you can now see whether where you cut out for it. So you have to test yourself and push yourself.
Yeah.
I went out for wrestling because I was was really good at academics. Okay,
Mhm.
when I was in high school, so I went out for wrestling, but first I went out for basketball. Okay, got cut so bad that I think he spent 5 minutes with me, and it was enough. He was cut. And even in wrestling, I was cut because you're not even supposed to get cut in wrestling. I was cut. Then I just started running and working out, running and working out. I came back the next year. I was like, oh yeah, we want you now. But you got to see you got to push yourself and get yourself into the mix to make sure you're, So I actually became a wrestler. Me and my twin brother actually became wrestlers, but I couldn't play football. I couldn't play basketball for sure.
I remember when I was in high school, I was so bad at athletics. I just joined them just to hang out and chat with people, but I was always bottom of the team.
Yeah.
But I was pretty fortunate. The sports I joined, they never had enough people to be able to cut, so
Yeah.
I was able to kind of remain down there.
Athletics is good for you though because it does teach you that discipline to do that extra stuff, which
Mhm.
is beyond just the meets, right? You got to do all the homework,
Yeah.
So our students in physics appreciate. So it's like in music. I say music and athletics is like physics because you have to prepare all the time for not just exams, but for defenses or even just writing a good publication or just the research you have to do. And the same with an athlete. A soccer player has to go out and then do her laps, okay, or she's not going to be able to, be able to compete. She's got to go do that when no one's around by herself because she's like, I noticed there was something sluggish about about my skills on the field the other day. So
Mhm.
she goes and fixes it. So that's the kind of stuff that you have to do.
And the mind and body really are connected, and so training the body also helps train the mind, and train the mind helps with the body and everything. So you've been a professor for a while now, 31 years. Does being a professor have all the glory that you'd imagine it having?
Yeah,
Or is it
it's
just
it's a
kind of,
it's a nice job.
Mhm.
It's a nice job, meet nice people. You see some extremely good students. I'm always impressed with the kind of students we see, and there's always the ins and outs. It's a terrible job if I want to focus on that to some extent too. But I mean, you can't find any aspect of life where you couldn't just point out the bad stuff all the time. But the professorship is you have a lot more. Anything you can do, anytime you can be creative and it's appreciated, then it's a good thing. Even if it's cooking in your own home, right? It's if you can do something creative and it's appreciated in that component. I mean, there's the professor has three tiers. They're evaluated on three things called teaching, research, and service.
Uh-huh.
Now, teaching and research, they can blend together because they like you, and they get mixed together. Am I teaching or am I doing research when I train my graduate students, okay, or even my undergrads? But then there's the service component, which defines the university in terms of what curriculum is going to be produced and which rooms will be in. Like for example, Caroline's got the service component just to make this room work for COVID-19.
Yeah.
Okay, that's part of her position as a professor. She is teaching, research, and the service components all together. So now, the research is nice, but it's got to go well before you really say, "Oh, this is great." I'm having a great time.
Mhm.
But I've gone years where you couldn't get something to work, and it's just not working, and it's got to work, so you keep trying, and all of a sudden it responds. But it's a story you can't explain to somebody. The fact that the perseverance sometimes really does pay off,
Is like a professor's focus more of the graduate students then, would you say?
It depends on who the professor is. I mean, Caroline Physician, for example, is more instructional. I have I'm in this what is called this track called tenure track, and it's at the University of Iowa. It's called a Research One Carnegie Research One University, which means we're required to do research, and that research has to be internationally recognized.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what a professor is at a university. So a lot of people will have to do at the right publications and things like this. You have to train the next generation of scientists, as well as you have an obligation for the student development of the undergraduates as in your university throughout the campus. In fact, so it's not just physics majors. You have an obligation for student development wherever you show up as a professor. So even if I have to teach physics 101, I have that obligation.
Have any students like stuck with you while you've been your time here in Iowa?
Then what? Have
any students stuck with you while you've been a professor? Would have been like memorable or anything like that? Or
they come back. Is that what you're asking? Yeah,
my
first student is a German professor. He comes back. I rarely don't. I mean, usually you see students come back most of the time, especially PhD students. Undergrads come back. I have undergrads who were one of my close friends actually won the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences undergraduate alumni award, and so she was an undergrad here in the physics department. She started her own aerospace computing company. You must have met her, Amanda.
Vito.
Vito, yeah. So you always have friends. Okay, I have friends who are in the school district in Chicago. Doctors, there's a lot of you meet a lot of people who are pretty impressive sometimes.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My final kind of general question for you is, I guess, what misconceptions do you see out there about physics?
The biggest misconception is I think people think physics is not for them because it's this huge, really big thing, sort of so on. But it's something really, really hard, and it's really outside their world. Okay, but they're doing physics. If they grab a doorknob and they push it, okay, they're doing physics all the time. It's really something. I would consider it as basic to your world as we appreciate far more complex things like music than we do something as basic as physics. The light in our eyes and the stuff which is going on in our bodies is all physics pretty much. Even chemistry can be thought of as basically physical processes. So just to know a little bit of what's going on, okay, when you see someone with a cell phone, you should be able to see in your head that that's just a radio transmitter, okay? And it's sophisticated and you've engineered it up to the wazoo, but it's really just a nice sharp computer, but it's also a radio transmitter. And that's why I don't work in the elevator, So it doesn't surprise you that it doesn't work in the elevator. So those kind of things we don't mix bleach and we don't mix bleach and ammonia in our house because we understand chemistry enough not to do these things. But when you hear words like watts and current in home, it's okay to take a peek on Wikipedia, figure out what does it mean by 50-watt light bulb.
Yeah. Honestly, I even forget a lot of the electricity terms sometimes. Are there any like big misconceptions about your field specifically?
Mine? I'll tell you a story that maybe it's I think that people don't understand this interplay of, for example, like for example, they don't understand who are the players in physics. Like I said, there's Madame Curie and there's Einstein, but there's also like Catholic priests are the ones who actually wrote the theory for the Big Bang. Okay, people just blows their minds that there was actually a Jesuit priest, who did that. Okay, so they think that the world is broken up into these little pieces. because you're this person, you're German, you should do this. You're black, you should do this. You're female, you should do that. But the history has no evidence that any of that's true.
Yeah.
And so, if you look at the players who are in physics, for example, you realize it's a full blown world of it's been going on for a long time, 4,000 years or so. Look to see if you can find the oldest mathematical document. It's called the Amis Papyrus. It's in the middle of North Africa. Along the Nile Valley, they did more mathematics than the law allows. Okay, compared to what we do, just to figure stuff out, because they were so excited that math could be used to figure out how much water you got in a lake. There was just so much excitement. They thought it was the fountain of youth was described by mathematics. So those are the kind of things that kind of excitement. I guess we sort of gotten used to it. So I think people don't appreciate that. Maybe they do, but that mathematics they're dripping in it. You can't go buy a pair of shoes without having some mathematics, because you need to know the size. You need to know how that scales up conformally in order to fit you, even though you've never seen this thing before. But your scale.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I guess math really does.
It's everywhere. So weights, and I tell you how much food to cook. You understand the measures, and those things are in that papyrus, for example, how to measure, how to weigh things, and how that's universal. If I say so many pounds of corn, okay, it means the same to me as it does if I'm in Indonesia. So if you drop a bowling ball on your foot, okay, here you do it over in Beijing, okay, it's going to feel pretty much the same. So there's some universalities, that's what I mean by that. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just what's real.
Yeah.
It's just that real is pretty sweet, pretty complicated.
Is that what it kind of like draws you into relativity? It's just the idea.
It's still real. Yeah. What we're studying is not fantasy. It's not Dungeons and Dragons. It's real. That stuff that these astronomers are looking at, that's real stuff. It makes you feel terribly small, but it's hardcore, real. That's the way the world really works. And once you reconcile that you're part of that thing, you learn to appreciate it a little bit better. So it's
Well, thank you very much for coming on. Are there anything you want to plug, or any finishing thoughts that you have?
No, I don't have anything to plug. Take my course in electricity and magnetism.
All right.
Anyway.
Is it a graduate course or is it undergraduate? Yeah. Okay, so maybe in a bit. I got my own undergraduate electricity.
I wasn't being serious.
Yeah.
You'll take it somewhere. Hopefully you'll go to a different graduate school. Make us proud of you.
Oh, don't worry, I will.
Yep.
All right, well, thank you everyone for coming. I hope you have a wonderful night. I'm going to end the Zoom call now.